Welcome to the White Stones podcast. I'm Dr. Jessica McLeese, psychologist, Christian sex therapist, and someone who's been radically transformed by Jesus. I work at the intersection of psychology and Christianity, tackling the hard stuff, trauma, shame, and sexuality with unashamed honesty and the wild hope that Jesus makes all things new. The name White Stones, it's from the book of Revelation. It's this picture of the intimate, personal relationship we can each have with Christ, and it's the heart of this podcast. If you're seeking faith that's deeply rooted, unflinchingly honest, and actually practical, you're in the right place. So grab your cup of joe, and let's do this. Well, Sean, thank you so much for joining me today and being willing to talk with me and with our listeners. So how about you start by just telling us who you are?
Absolutely. So, yes, you've already said my first name, Sean. My name is Sean Phillip. I am, what are some things about me? Let's go. Fun facts. Let's just go there. So I am Sri Lankan. I was born in Sri Lanka. And then I'm also, an immigrant. I came to Dallas, Texas. My parents were looking for better opportunity. We were blessed enough for God to make a way for us to come here, and we came to Dallas, Texas. Let's see. So primarily raised in Texas, pretty much all my known life. I have been, I've had the the honor of just like growing up in a Christian home. We'll just say even from before the womb. My parents were very much involved in the church, and in some way or matter, they served. They were some kind of elder or something of that nature. So there is a spiritual like legacy in my family. Other things about me, I like to sing. I guess we'll say like I'm drawn towards creativity because I'm made in the image of God, the Creator. So that's one of the things that was instilled in me. So fashion, whether that's design or styling, even like right now, I'm just honored that God's giving me the chance to kind of do a little step into interior design with furniture sales and stuff like that, or music, but it's especially just like in Christian and gospel space. My primary instrument is going to be my voice.
Yes.
Secondary is going to be keyboard. And I'm just really glad that God has given me all these things to steward. And I'm just taking it one at a time, because when you try to look at all of them and say like I'm going to do everything, it can be overwhelming. So it's just like we're just going to tackle one at a time.
Love that. Okay, we go to church together, so I can attest that you sing really well, because I have on multiple occasions heard you singing. You probably remember a few weeks ago you were sitting behind me, but I didn't realize you were sitting behind me, and I kept hearing this singing because I don't know your voice real well yet. Like, we're kind of getting to know each other now. So I heard this beautiful singing behind me, and I kept wanting to turn around and look, but I was like, no, stay focused. Don't look around. But yeah, really beautiful voice. We are blessed to have you at church.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, we'll jump into more of the testimony piece too. So I'd love for you to just kind of give us a snapshot of your testimony, what God has done for you, and then I'm going to ask some questions as well.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll do a quick overarch over my life. I kind of mentioned, so I came to America when I was 5, and just a thing that just happened throughout life was my parents and a lot of people saw around me that I tend to be more sensitive, as well as just more creatively inclined. And I was not really that crazy into sports. I was not the typical definition of, a tomboy or masculinity and those kinds of things is in the world's definition or view of it. So I think looking back, I've heard and I know a lot of times where just growing up, people would ask my family just like, what's going on with Sean? Is he Sean? Like, is he okay? Like, and then kind of like dropping those hints of like, is he, and it's just like, of course it sucks to like know like people were talking behind my back, but that's just how far back it goes of like from a young age of people questioning and in a sense almost even speaking that over me kind of thing. And I think that's a overarching theme for a lot of people that deal with things, is that people don't realize the weight of words. There's life and death on the tongue. And so again, I grew up and went through school, elementary school and such. And yeah, I will say that I dealt with not meshing well with like the boys kind of situation. They tend to again want to talk about sports, or unfortunately be crude and talk about girls in ways that you shouldn't talk about girls, or sometimes even share pictures and stuff like that. It's just like I didn't want to be around that, so I usually avoided them for the most part. And ended up just being friends with the girls, which they talked about just normal and or fun or much more mature things kind of situation. And I happened to have another, guy friend as well. Like I would say from third grade onwards, that was very similar. Just saw like he was also more creatively inclined, and again, he just noticed the same trend with the guys, so we just stuck with the girls. But yeah, I'll say I think it was sixth grade is my first memory of a major like friend rejection, that I had a guy that I'd been friends with for a few years, but then just in the middle of the hallway, um, told me just like, man, like get away from me. Just like, I don't want to be your friend. And I was just like, why? Like we've gone to school together. Like my parents, even whenever they would go out of the country, would have me like stay with him like a week or two and his parents. So it's just like there was a sense of this brotherhood that I thought was there. But at the same time, because people were talking behind my back or questioning my identity and sexuality and stuff like that, he didn't want to be um, associated with me, or just grouped in with me kind of situation. So I got rejected just like in the hallway, and he's just like, because you're gay. And I was just like, what does that even mean? I had no idea what that meant at that age. And that stung. And unfortunately, when you're young, and of course in my age growing up, we had access to technology, computers, etc. When you're curious, you start going and googling things, and you find things that you're not supposed to find. And it just you just kind of go down that rabbit hole. Another time, I'll say later on in high school, the friend that I had, again, really really felt that we were just brothers again. He was probably like my closest friend from third grade. I had mentioned him prior of like, he also would hang out with the girls, and we kind of just all like didn't want to be around those conversations or those topics that the guys usually talked about. We just didn't feel comfortable. He also distanced himself from me as well, even though it is something that a thing that he also battled with himself. But people in high school were also starting to ask him just like, oh, are y'all dating, blah 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 blah, and just he say she said. And I just felt a shift. I was like 11th grade, where he just didn't talk to me the same way, or associate with me. He would only really come to me for like homework help, which it was even worse. It's just like, not only are you not going to be my friend, but now you're just going to use me so I can help you get good grades, so those were a couple of times there of situations in school where just male friends that didn't want to associate with me. Another thing that I'll say that's from a young age, I noticed, unfortunately, my father, bless him, I still honor him for, again, the sacrifice that he made of like leaving what he knew, his family, like in Sri Lanka, and coming to America. That's a big step. It's a major sacrifice, and it's a risk, and you're really like leaning on the Lord, because there's not a lot of guarantees or security there. But they just had this dream and this inclination of like God has something for us in America, opportunity, etc. But he worked hard, he worked a lot. Um, and unfortunately, because of his upbringing of not having a father figure or a father's love as well himself from a very, very young age, he didn't have that example. He didn't know how to connect with the father, and when it was his turn to be a father, he didn't know how to connect with me and my brother. So I'm blessed that he was present for, working in the financial provision, and he did provide a very good example at the very least of just like doing Bible studies and on his own, just like he was very faithful to reading his word and studying and praying. And worshiping the Lord, even though he didn't have the best voice, but bless his heart, he had the heart for it. So he had those things, but unfortunately, he just didn't know how to show up um, emotionally and mentally for us as his sons. And unfortunately, I also dealt with my older brother dealing with his own stuff, heart issues, mental things, and um, I guess you can say I kind of leaned on him in the home to be a form of that male camaraderie, friendship, brother intimacy, male intimacy. But at the same time, he also pushed me away really hard. Would often hit me and verbally abuse me as well. And growing up, my mom definitely did come to my rescue a little bit more, but she tried. But at the same time, they were also scared of him to a certain extent, just because of his anger issues and stuff like that at a young age, and his strength and his violence at times, and the way he would just have outbursts. And then there was also that thing of boys will be boys, is what they kind of chalked it up to. Just like, oh, they're just gonna wrestle, they'll get out of their system, they'll be fine. But I don't think they really like realized the weight of it, of how much that affected and hurt and traumatized me, of being bullied and picked on in my own home. I didn't have I was living in a space that I was not safe for me. And another thing as well that I didn't feel safe in my own home, just to kind of go on that vein, was just like the constant messaging from my family. It was definitely very, well, I don't know, we can say homophobic or however we want to call it, but just like these messages of just like, oh, they're talking about someone else or someone in the family that their husband was married to their cousin, and then all of a sudden, a few years in or a few years later, they leave them for a man kind of situation. And just like, so there's that hurt of like, man, my family member got hurt by this other man, um, who left to quote unquote pursue his own truth and his happiness kind of situation. But they just talked about him and just talked about other people, just like, and just, even like the warnings of like, don't let a guy touch you kind of situation, or this and that. But just talked very derogatively, there it is, of just people that were LGBTQ or gay or homosexual, whatever, we want to label it. And that didn't help, because when I started wondering, like, again, questioning from sixth grade onwards, like, am I? Now, are they talking about me? Am I just as dirty or filthy or whatever that as they're talking about them? Does that include me kind of situation? So you start one, and then again, that just promoted this feeling of like, I can't truly be myself and truly feel safe in my own home, not just only with not having an emotionally present father and also having an abusive brother. But now my family are giving me these messages that I have to tread lightly or walk on eggshells. And just again, there was a sense of just like a pending doom of like rejection, or just this feeling of like, am I going to get kicked out, or something like that going to happen? Am I going to get disowned? So yeah, that was a major thing that happened just through childhood there. I guess leaning more into my story of navigating, trying to figure myself out, trying to, again, what the world was saying of just like, oh, just like, experiment, be happy, um, love is love. There's all these messages that they like to throw your way, but they don't know the the consequences, or the weight and the things that come with that, of just blindly trying to pursue that. Um, Something that happened, I guess, that opened the door for me truly was when I was 17. My family, we took a vacation to Sri Lanka because my sister was engaged, and they wanted to go get her sari and also introduce her fiance and such to the family, and have her an engagement party there, etc., and just have a family vacation and stuff. I would say that was like winter of 2012. And so we went and did that, and um, I think someone in the family had gifted my parents 2 coupons, kind of situation, or paid certificates for massages. My dad, though, he really didn't want to go because he knows what kind of massages he likes, and he just knew that they weren't going to like give the kind of massage that he likes. So he's like, well, no, I'm not going to go. But my mom's like, yeah, of course I'll go. Like, this is, I'm on vacation. Let me do an extra level of, relaxation. And then I don't know why, but in my mind, I was just like, well, if he's not using it, why don't I use it? So I asked, can I go instead? And they're like, yeah, why not? Like, go for it. It's already paid for, you know? Um, so I went. I was 17 at the time. I feel like the place was in a kind of like a hotel kind of setting. And I just remember, of course, just like, going to a cafe with my mom, sitting down, and then them calling us to separate rooms. Probably not a good idea. Just, warn parents, especially when you have an underage kid, maybe don't let them go into a separate room with a masseuse kind of situation. But that's exactly what happened. And yeah, I was getting massage, and when you're that age, when you're young, and you just don't know how your body works, and um, we can say I got excited, and the masseuse noticed, kind of situation, and I was just like, "What's going on with my body? Why is it responding this way?" And then he just started taking advantage of the situation to like um, nudge the flow of the massage in a direction that it shouldn't have gone, but it did, in terms of just like it just turned into a sexual thing kind of situation. Almost lost my virginity, but didn't, because it was just like he didn't know what he was doing, but just a lot of other stuff did happen. Um, and then I just remember, once all of that was done, I was irritated because it's just like that wasn't even a good relaxing massage. I took a shower, I came out, and was with my mom, and I sat with her, and we, had a beverage or a refreshment, maybe even a snack or lunch or something. But I was just irritated because I was just like, man, I didn't get like a full massage, and I'm more tight and wound up and like on edge than when I came into this, which is not what you would expect from going to a massage therapist kind of thing. And so that experience, unfortunately, did, again, you're questioning like, well, my body enjoyed it? Question mark. Did I enjoy that? And it's just started, spinning some questions in my head. And when we got back, I would say spring of 2013. Well, we came back winter, but that spring of 2013, again, I was still, I can't remember. I think I might have been a senior, actually. And this was before I turned 18. I had downloaded apps and started, just, as I've already mentioned before, I didn't have a lot of great male intimacy, brothers, father roles, or anything like that were present in my life. So take that, and now you mix it with, now you just had this sexual experience with a guy, and you felt close, and you're again, as a teenager, your body enjoyed it, so it's just like, okay, I want to explore this and see if this is my truth, we can say, and I did. And it just went off and on for years, even though, like, of course, raised in the church and raised with the teaching of just like pursuing the lifestyle is wrong, even though a lot of teaching was being one was wrong, which, we'll get into that, of just like, I don't think there's anything wrong with having the attraction. I think it's the delineation of practicing and pursuing the lifestyle. But there was a lot of teachings there. So I knew, this is what the church or teaches, or this is what the what's in the Bible. But at the same time, it's just like you have this conflict of like, well, my feelings, what I'm trying to figure out, will this be happiness for me, etc. And so for years after that point, I wrestled with, is this my life? Is this my portion? Is this going to be what my future looks like? Because I'm attracted sexually to men and unfortunately not to women. And there's also this weight from not only the church, but also the world of the goal of marriage. Like, it really was growing up, the goal was marriage. Like, you got to pray for your spouse and work on, pray for yourself and your spouse before marriage, but it's all about getting married and having children and being fruitful and multiplying. Which that's not even all that scripture means, but it's fine. So there was that pressure of just like, okay, like, well, if I'm not gonna, what am I gonna do if I have a hard time sexually being with a woman? And that's not fair to her. And then now I'm in the spot of like, am I gonna be alone? Am I gonna be able to get married? Am I gonna have a life partner kind of situation? Am I expected to have children? But do I even want children? And I still wrestle with that idea and thought in itself. But yeah, it's a lot of questions that you have to face and deal with while trying to figure out a big part of. It feels like your sexual identity was grouped into like your identity while I was growing up, which really isn't the case. But it really felt like that was such a pending, like, urgent question to figure out, and hence again why society would just say, just like, yeah, again, experiment, figure it out. Not a good suggestion. And after high school, I went to a Bible school west of Houston. It's Texas Bible Institute. I went there for a year, got certificates in discipleship and leadership, and then I came back to Dallas and started trying to go to UT Arlington. That just didn't work out for me, just because I was pursuing a degree that I would hope would, in a sense, make my father happy and maybe even gain some approval from him, kind of thing. But I was miserable in the midst of it. I ended up going to Christ for the Nations for a full 3-year program for a bachelor's in practical ministry, which was really great and life-giving. But through each of these stages, I'm still wrestling, and one foot in and one foot out, and just like going in the directions of encounters and hookups, but at the same time, just like, but I'm being, but I'm, I grew up in a Christian family, and I'm also coming into my own as a young adult of just like my own walk in faith and belief in the Lord. And yeah, it was really quite a tug back and forth between, my faith and beliefs in Christianity, and then, but what about my life here on earth kind of situation? Does that line up with, again, what I'm feeling and what I'm leaning towards sexually? Wrestled. Even after graduating, I served in church for many years, faithfully in different capacities, set up, tear down, hospitality, all the different things, and even kind of like went through like volunteer leadership and like rose in the ranks of volunteer leadership and stuff like that. But through all of this, unfortunately, I didn't have a good foundation with God, a strong relationship with Him. I think there was a lot of this idea of doing and performing and serving and striving that I didn't realize I was doing. And that was unfortunately ingrained. Again, I think a lot of people that are immigrants, and or, yeah, I will say immigrants. It's not just an Asian thing. It's a lot of immigrant families. You get this feeling of like, you got to work hard to be a fill in the blank doctor, lawyer, whatever kind of situation. You got to make money. Creative things are not going to do that for you, but these things will. And yeah, it was, that was, we'll just say that was a thing in itself, but I was serving, but again, still living this double life, a secret double life, of trying to see, well, if this doesn't work out for me, or if this doesn't potentially fulfill me, or if I can't, marry a woman and have children with her and pursue this life, then maybe I will at least have some experience in the lifestyle, the LGBTQ kind of situation, to go that direction instead. And there was even, I'll be real, I feel a lot of people deal with this, the question of why can't I have both? I feel like that's a very common question for not everyone, but a lot of people that are Christian and dealing with the attractions or the gender identity and stuff like that.
Both meaning a relationship with God and a relationship with someone of the same sex.
Yeah. Which, we can get into that. That's not really, we'll get into that.
Okay.
So there was a lot of questions there. And unfortunately I got to a point, I will say I'm very blessed to have met one of my spiritual mothers. Her name is Laura Allred. She became like my young adults pastor, and I kind of coined the term for her, my pastor mom, in 2020. And that was the last couple of years of me being in like volunteer leadership for the young adults back in my church's Trinity Church in Cedar Hill, at least back in Texas. And just being able to run with her and have an example of an intercessor, and just, I don't think I'd ever had someone in ministry that cared as deeply as she cared for us. And we saw her, she prayed, she cried, she would literally like cry these tears, these tears of prayer, and would contend for us and stand in the gap for us. And then allowed herself to like knit her hearts with her spiritual children, and like be on the lookout, the spiritual, like she would always tell me, she would have these spiritual alarms go off whenever she felt one of us was straying or going in a direction we weren't supposed to go in. And I just want to honor her. Like she really plays an important role in my story and testimony. But we wrestled even for a bit, with what I was going through. Because eventually, she felt in her spirit that something was wrong, that I was doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for ratting me out.
That's right. Go do it.
Never underestimate a praying mama.
Right.
And, she figured it out, but she's just like, I still want you as a son. I still want you around. This doesn't mean like you have to, we're disowning you, or you can't come here. You can't be a part of this family. You can't be a part of this church. It's just like, we got to figure this out together and walk this together. But and she told me it's also my job to like let her in and to let her be part of it as we figured it out together. And she didn't have all the answers, but fortunately she got connected. We'll say with a sister in the faith, Lindsay Kaiser. And within barely getting to like meet her and know who she was just like, actually, I have someone in mind who's has a similar testimony, and they're walking in power and spirit and truth in God, and just and holiness unto Him. And she's just like, I really feel like you should meet her. And so we met together in a like a restaurant cafe, and we were introduced to each other. And Lindsay has a really powerful testimony, and at that point it's just like, okay, are you willing to work on this and work on hashing it out with the Lord? And are you willing to go through, to talk it out and go through healing and deliverance prayers and stuff like that? And I was like, yeah, like if that'll help, if that'll do something, and yeah, absolutely, I would love to do that. And so we did go through a couple seasons together of doing that, me and Lindsay. At the same time, I will admit that there was a part of me that still probably wanted to, again, still have that question of like, why can't I have both? And what if? And that desire for a same-sex partner and a future and a life with them, the home, potential children or fur children, whatever that looked like, you know. And I kind of ended up slipping again just because I wasn't, I didn't really let myself be on a strong foundation with the Lord. I didn't have a strong, developing, ongoing relationship with the Lord, to ground myself in spirit and in truth. And so I would say, I think like 2022, I had a moment where I met someone online on one of the apps, and we connected real fast, but it was like fast and furious and risky. And we thought we wanted to be together, but there was just a lot there of toxicness, of this other individual dealing with alcoholism and their own brokenness. And from that brokenness, again, also even just being manipulative and abusive, like potential for physical abuse and stuff like that too. And I'm really glad that the Lord put a stop to that when He did, and pulled us apart from each other, because that could have really taken a really dangerous turn. But that was a time when, because I slipped into that, again, Pastor Laura, she was grieved, but at the same time, she's just like, I can't let you go. You're my son. You know, she did challenge me and say just like, hey, like, I don't think you can be on leadership right now because of this. I don't think it's fair to you to expect from you to carry this weight that comes with being in a leadership role in the church while you're wrestling with this and while you're wounded. You're not able to run alongside with the rest of us. We're expecting you to run alongside us in battle, but you're a wounded warrior right now, very much so. Like, you need time to heal, and you need time to go through the spiritual rehab, you know, we can say. And so it was tough. It was really tough because, again, I didn't realize until that point how much I dealt with the aspect of serving and then looking to that for my spiritual identity and associating that with feeling like that was my relationship with the Lord, of like, oh, I have a strong relationship with the Lord. I serve very fervently and faithfully in church and stuff like that. Still was working with Lindsay and reading her book with her, Piercing the Darkness, if I remember correctly. Piercing the Night. Thank you. I'm just like, it's not coming to me, but it's piercing something. Thank you. And yeah, so we did that. And another thing that Lindsay introduced me to, which I'm really grateful for, was Freedom March and Rainbow Revival. In those couple of years of us knowing, and I actually got to go to Washington, D.C. and even Atlanta to be a part of a couple of those marches. And it was really refreshing, because growing up, you don't hear stories of people that were in the lifestyle, but they had an encounter with the Lord, or the Lord, they developed and came into this fresh conviction of like, that's not the life that God wants for me, and I'm going to pursue Him, whatever that looks like, even if it means treading, being just taking the road less traveled. Because it's so easy for everyone to just go with, again, their feelings and their attraction, and to just pursue that, and but it's not when you wrestle with it, and you got to figure out, okay, like, how do I pursue the Lord, and what does this look like to say yes to him, but no to these things of my flesh, and to lay down my desires. Um, yeah. So it was really refreshing being able to connect with these men and women, and they were all in different stages of their life, just like me, of like either freshly coming out of the lifestyle. Some of them had been out of the lifestyle, but they were still dealing with the attraction. And some of them, either the Lord did, create a change or do something and flip something that they were able to become attracted to the opposite sex. And even some of them, not only that, like got married, found their partner, got married, and even as far as that, as having children. So it's just like you have everyone on the spectrum of like they're in different places of their life coming together. And it was just really encouraging, because that's just not something that gets talked about or exposed really, like, or put in news media.
Right.
The narrative that we've been given is, if you have that attraction, if you have that inclination, it's kind of like this idea of like you're doomed to fall into it and go into that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Or having a fall, or having a exit from the church or something, and not coming back kind of situation. So
yeah, and that's certainly true in my field as well, and I'll talk about that more probably like on a solo episode, but that's certainly a problem in our field. Is there's this kind of expectation that if someone is dealing with same-sex attractions, that needs to be affirmed and praised, and then that it won't change, and so we shouldn't try to change it. It's considered, judgmental to try to change something like that. And there are some states even that if someone tries to walk somebody through a process where they're trying to make those changes, that's actually not allowed, which is really tragic. So people can come in even wanting to work on these attractions and wanting at least not to act out on them. And we're not really supposed to talk about those things. We're supposed to send them, to a church instead of trying to handle that psychologically, which is interesting, because I think the churches don't necessarily know how to do it well. I think the heart of our church is to do this well, but we're definitely in the learning process of what does it mean to have conversations that are actually helpful.
Yeah. No, that's... Oof, thank you for adding that. So yeah, Freedom March, Rainbow Revival, again, walking and doing life with Laura and Lindsay. But at the same time, I didn't have a strong foundation, and I was still, even though I wasn't on leadership, I was still serving and burning out. That was a very common thing that happens cyclically. And while I was there, it's just like I would keep burning out and serving from an empty cup and from fumes, and again, striving and pushing. And eventually I got to a place where I was just like, this isn't working for me. And I started just I had this desire of just like, man, maybe I should look for someone that's, on the app, that's really looking for substance, that they're really looking for not just a hookup or anything casual or random. They're actually looking for something deeper. And just somehow I did end up connecting with someone, February of 2023, and we connected fast, and we talked, and we ended up falling, hard in love with each other. And I ended up telling my parents, and eventually also even telling Laura and Lindsay. And that was definitely an experience. My parents were definitely grieved. Even Laura and Lindsay were grieved when I told them that I found someone that I want to be with, and that I want to pursue what life would look like with them, kind of situation. My parents were upset. I think my mom had noticed that I was happy and like talking to someone, but she really thought it was a woman. So she kind of, in a sense, called me a liar, in a sense of like, for deceiving her, for being giddy, and because I had even like cooked a meal for for Marcus. I cooked a meal for him, and so she saw that. She's like, "Oh, you're cooking something special." It was like around Valentine's Day, so she knew something was going on, but she didn't know exactly what it was. And then even I just remember my father saying, just like, you can't be in this relationship while you're under this roof. And unfortunately, they don't really remember saying that, or he doesn't remember saying that. But I mean, if you're on the other side of those words, if you're in my shoes, that sounds like an ultimatum. And at that point, I was just like, well, I'm not breaking up with him, and I'm not saying no to the relationship. So I guess that means I'm no longer under this roof. So it didn't take me very long, probably within the next couple of days, to, ask Marcus. I'm just like, hey, I know we just got together. I know this is fast, but can I move in with you? Because my parents said so and so. They said this thing, and he's just like, yeah, why not? Because we had grown attached to each other, and even just being apart from each other for a couple of days was, was hard for us. And when you're young and in love, I feel a lot of people can relate to that kind of situation. But it was hard because my parents were like, he cannot come around. He cannot even drive on our driveway or pavement. His car can't be here, so he can't help you move out. And so that was really rough, to be put in that position of, I was literally taking everything that I could from my room, and just taking all of these things and loading them into my car and kind of playing Tetris in my car, just loading, taking as much as I could, but I had to do it by myself. And it's just like this really sad march back and forth from the entrance of the home all the way like through this long house just to get to my room, back and forth. And so I did that. I moved out and moved in with Marcus, and we started doing life together as boyfriends and living together. And it was not easy because there can be struggle. There can be, at that point, I do remember actually I was unemployed. So that was something that he was aware of, that I brought into the relationship, but he was a good sport about it, and he did the best he could. All the while though, like at the start of that relationship, I do remember praying often from the beginning of like, God, I don't know what this is. I'm falling in love with this man. I care for him deeply. Is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Is this the best thing for me? Is this what you have for me? And I didn't hear anything, of course, for a long time. But that was a recurring prayer that I had, of, are you happy with this? Am I honoring you? While still wrestling with, but I love him. I see a future with him. And that was an ongoing thing that happened for, I would say, several months. Those questions, those prayers, all while being together with Marcus. And it's so funny how good God is when it comes to, when you're a child of God, even when you are pursuing any kind of sin, or just in whatever sin or lifestyle of sin, but you're a son or a daughter of God, that he still will bless you. Like, we would have these moments where God would provide, or we would meet people and have these like just divine, amazing conversations that were life-giving, and God would be present in the room. Even when we were together, just like, whether we were together, sometimes we didn't have each other if he was at work or if I was at work or whatever, or meeting with a friend, or sometimes when we were together socially out somewhere, but just like God would be in the room and present. Which was also a little confusing, I'm not gonna lie.
Sure. Absolutely it is.
I was just like, God, is this wrong if you're present? if you're providing, if you're
Yeah.
being so good, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just like, that's how good God is. It's like, even when you are doing things you shouldn't be doing or pursuing sin, etc., or lifestyles that aren't honoring him, we're still inherently like just so loved and blessed and favored by him. He can't help but shower those things on us, even when we're not doing the right thing.
So interesting, because that's certainly not the tradition I grew up in. Like, blessing was a sign of you doing things properly. And when life was going amok, it must mean something is going on inside of you. So it's such an interesting perspective to say, actually, sometimes God blesses us in the midst of even when we're not doing right, even when we're sinning. And it's hard to understand. He's just really good.
Mm-hmm. So that definitely threw me for a loop too.
Yeah, for sure.
But the goodness of God, the kindness of God. And I think that was probably also a prayer that I would actually pray over myself and Marcus. And we can say by default, people in the LGBTQ is just like, God, would we, have a fresh revelation of your grace and your mercy, a deeper understanding of your goodness and your love, and would if and when I'm doing something wrong, would your kindness lead me to repentance? And that was another recurring conversation and prayer I have with God. And he showed up.
Yeah.
He would do exactly just that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did life together. There was intent for us to be engaged and going towards marriage and stuff like that. But it was an arduous relationship, not between us, but I think with any relationship, there's going to be both individuals bring their baggage, their trauma. There's going to be, you're going to get triggered by something that's done or said by the other person or someone outside of the relationship, and that comes home with you. So there was a lot of dealing with that. But otherwise we were pretty good. But dealing with my parents and my sister and brother-in-law and other family members that were just very vehemently just like, this is wrong, you should be doing this. And just the way that they talked to me and even us, but the both of us, was, I don't know, it just wasn't very loving. And there was even just like these conditions that they would set up, just like, oh, well, you can't come around. Or even when they started opening up to the idea, months, we'll say in, or maybe halfway through our relationship, of him coming around, they're like, oh, well, he can come around, but you can't, hold hands or just even put an arm around his shoulder, or vice versa. You can't even, your thighs can't be touching when you're sitting down just on a couch together. You can't even look across the room at each other with the eyes of being in love with each other. It's like, how do you do that? How do you ask that of someone? And it's not like we were ever going to like do like major PDA in the first place in front of them. If we were going to be in a family setting in their home, we knew better than that, to respect them in their home. You're making these requests that are just like, are very unrealistic, of like, where's the line between even the love between brothers or good friends? They would put their arm around each other. They would like sit next to each other, maybe, arm to arm, shoulder to shoulder, whatever. Like, there's these things, like, you're not saying anything about that, but because there's the context of us being in a romantic and sexual relationship, now it's wrong. This is a very, it's hypocritical. It's a double standard, and it was a very like rough to deal with. So it was just really hard to be around my family, because there was a lot of conversations or chastising, or however we want to call it, of, you're doing the wrong thing and yada yada, here's a scripture to follow up kind of situation, and just saying nasty things even just talking about me or Marcus, especially Marcus, behind his back about things that were not true, but they would come to these assumptions of things of like, oh, Sean, and it really was like it felt like they were meaner towards him, because it's like, well, Sean can't be doing anything wrong. He's our son, he's our brother, he's a believer, but it has to be this other person. He has to be the one tempting him. He has to be the one leading him down the wrong path. And it's just like, that's really not fair to Marcus. It was and is a lovely individual. I make my own decisions. I am just as capable of sinning or doing the right and the wrong thing, and it's just painting him out to be the villain really didn't help,
right.
And me to be the victim that's being hoodwinked.
Yeah.
So a lot of that rhetoric, going through family gossip and conversations, and it just at that point I didn't want to be. They didn't really make me feel comfortable even whenever I came around. I felt like I was just the elephant in the room or the black sheep. They didn't know how to interact with me. And even when it came time for Marcus to be around, it's just like, it was even hard for him just to like come around even when they started extending the invitation, just because of those conversations and the way that there was just so much going on there. So that really was a major strain on our relationship. And also, I would say just a major strain on not just our relationship or our relationships with them, but my relationship with the Lord was strained by those things. The gossip, the nasty words, and the things that they would say or do. And it was very conditional love, but also it was unfortunately rooted in this idea of like, well, what Sean is doing wrong, and I'm just trying to make sure that he doesn't go to hell, and I'm trying to point him in the right direction. So whatever I say or do is justified. Kind of that crusader vibe that happened a lot through the ages, unfortunately, of just like, oh, well, we have a righteous cause, and we're going to kill or steal or destroy or whatever for that cause, without really loving the way Jesus did and would have, and talking and getting to know the individual, and instead of putting them in this generic box of wickedness or whatever you think that they are, or that they encompass, that you made this narrative of everyone that's part of that lifestyle, just they're all drinking, they're alcoholics, or drug addicts, they go to the club, they're wicked, yada yada. And that's not the case. I don't think it's fair to put everyone in a same, like in one box, or to like associate them equally like that.
They were misperceiving you and Marcus really in different ways, right? With making Marcus the bad guy, but believing that you had been hoodwinked. I mean, that says something about you too. That's making you at least, I don't know, foolish maybe, or gullible or something. So it must have felt pretty awful to feel like both of you were kind of defenseless against those words and things that were coming to you.
Yeah, all while we were trying to walk on the eggshells of not saying or doing something wrong towards them that would cause them to like not want him to be welcome all of a sudden. Because that's really what we wanted, was just like, can he just come and get to know you? Can we just have a meal together? Can we have fun and play board games or whatever that look like, or go out together and it just be a good time? That's all we wanted.
Do you think it would have changed the end of your story? Because I know there's more to that relationship that you're going to talk about. Do you think it would have changed anything if your parents had been more willing to have him come in and get to know them?
Potentially. I mean, at this point, we may never know, because that time is gone.
Yeah.
But potentially, I think it might have actually been more healing, in the sense of what I mentioned before, of like the the rhetoric that I would hear growing up of what they thought and felt about people that were gay, etc. I think it would have just been nice to feel more accepted, that I could really be myself more around them. And then that doesn't have to mean like me being gay, just like we're having the same sex attraction, just me being able to be bubbly and be joyful and full of life and humor. I felt like I couldn't be that because I just felt like that was being put under the umbrella of like, oh, something's wrong. He's going into the dark side or something, you know, or we have to like tell him not to walk or talk a certain way. And I think that also would have been really like healing for Marcus, to, yeah, I think it would have really helped for the both of us, but especially for Marcus to have a family that would have like, that had the foundation in God and the Word, but was willing to again sit and eat and talk with and have the conversations, versus just again painting him in a light and putting up these rules and stuff without really truly letting him in and getting to know him.
It's kind of the heart of discipleship, right? I know that's something that we're both interested in because it's something our church is interested in. But it's the heart of discipleship, being willing to sit with people not like me, right? Like I'm my own mess. I have my own things that I have to work on the Lord with. But discipleship is all about sitting with anyone, right? And being willing to have conversations, being willing to get to know them, show the love of God. Not making about this is who you should be, but it's more like you're modeling it. That's what we talk about like in psychology, right? You model the behavior that you would hope others would have. And like that's supposed to be enough. Like in more Christian language, it would be being a good witness, or as Paul would say, follow me as I follow Christ. So it becomes more about the way you live your life instead of the words you say. The words are important too, right? But it's more about, let me show you by example what it looks like to follow after Christ.
I think I'll pick up with dealing with the, I don't know, I think I was really trying to wrap my mind and everything, my spirit, around who is love, what is love. Because I'm in love with this person, but I'm also dealing with not so great an example of love from my family. And, you know, I think even the song Pieces by Bethel comes to mind. They do a really good job of just like singing about, I think it's, what is that, 1 Corinthians 13, right? Is that the love chapter?
Love is patient.
Yes.
Yeah, love is kind. Yeah.
That was a really major song for me in that season, and a reminder that just that passage of just like, well, this is love, but this is what I'm being shown by people that are supposed to be, you know, the hands and the feet of Jesus.
It's a painful thought to think that there are times when we're really not doing that well.
Yeah. And because of that, I reached a point where I just felt like I was dealing with this noise that was not showing me the love of God, that I did have to like put a cut, or just a cutoff with those people. Of just like, hey, like, I don't think I can keep talking to you, or having these phone calls or FaceTimes, or coming for family, you know, special events and stuff like that, or I can't do this, because I just feel like I'm just getting lost in the sauce of it all, and I'm just getting more lost in my walk and my journey with the Lord. And so I told him I'm going to need some time where we're not talking or seeing each other or spending time with each other. And it's just so funny how after doing that and giving myself peace from all that noise and that just hullabaloo, we underestimate the power of taking out noise and distractions. And it was after that point that I just felt the Lord for months on end after that point, just like so near and so present.
Yeah.
And that's when the work was able to start. I feel like he was really able to start working on me in a more deeper way. Yes, I will honor and say that there was people regardless that were praying and contending for me. And I give, I will honor and give credit for the people that prayed for me throughout that entire season. But at the same time, it's just like the Lord was really, it's change and transformation, healing and everything that just comes through him and him alone, his presence and all that he is. So from that point on, it's just like, I just felt like he was just wooing me in to get to know him better, get into scripture. I just felt like I started hearing him and just so much more clearer after that cutoff. And this is, let's see, October of 2024, like the very beginning of that month, I just all of a sudden just felt really strongly God was telling me like, hey, I need you to fast. I'm like, what? Okay, and he's like, also read, I think it was like 1st and 2nd Samuel. Like, okay. And on top of that, he's like, I also want you to march or pray around, like walk around your apartment building while reading Piercing the Night. So all these things he was asking me to do. I'm like, okay. So I did that. And then the day before, this is October 11th, he told me, hey, I want you to plug in some sick hours tomorrow, because I was scheduled to work that Saturday. Plug in some sick hours. I was like, and working in corporate America, I was like, no, those are so precious. I can't like use that. He's just like, what did I say? Use your sick hours. It's for such a time as this. And you're going to attend 1 million women online. As much as, he was telling me like, I would have loved to have been there in person in DC, but he's like, no, you're going to attend online tomorrow. I'm like, okay, wrestled with it. But I eventually went and plugged in the sick hours. Woke up the next morning. I got the time zone stuff wrong, so I might have missed it by like the first couple of hours, but I woke up and I attended. And it's just so crazy. It was really such a powerful and beautiful time of seeing Pastor Laura and Lindsay and their interaction, and for Pastor Laura to say the specific thing of just like repenting for the church, treating people of LGBTQ like lepers. The way I cried and just felt that, it's just like there was no words for it until she put it there. Like, yes, we have been treated like unclean and dirty, and don't touch them because it felt like we were in contagious. Don't let your children around us, that kind of situation, so for her to say that was just so, it was just so special. And then also just to see as well, like Lindsay as well, like they both like humbled themselves and like repented to each other, just like we repent for this and this. So to see that public display on live, from the stage where there's hundreds of thousands, well, not hundreds, maybe, I don't know, like 100,000, 10,000, I can't remember how many people were there in person, but millions of people. I think it was like 10 million people probably were in attendance with the online. To see that, even just seeing like, it was so special that Laura said like, hey, I made sure your name was on the top of the list on the wailing wall, the digital wailing wall that they had. And not only that, not only was it the very first name on there, it was actually also alphabetically where it was supposed to be. So my name was on that list twice.
Wow.
And I saw that whenever I got to see the wailing wall kind of scrolling. And so I just felt so just like loved, and like felt like I was really being carried by the both of them. And I had an encounter with the Lord. I think it was like in Central Time, like 1:45, 2:00, where the Lord started speaking to me. He's just like, hey, I know you've been praying for months, asking me these questions, and you've been tender in heart, or trying to tender your heart to me. And he started telling me just like, hey, here's the answer to your question. You and Marcus were never meant to be more than David and Jonathan for each other. And it just kind of just exploded and had that aha moment in my head, because that's one of the only times in the Bible where it talks about two men being, and they were intimate, but it's like not in a sexual sense, but it just goes like, why would the Bible go through the trouble of saying, but they were intimate? you know, and in more modern terms, they were ride or die. There were, you know, war buddies. They cried and ate together. There's all those things that's a part of that.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really good interpretation of how same-sex relationships should be. Not with the romance, not with the sex was what he told me, but all of those things was what you two were really, y'all wanted that intimacy, that kind of intimacy with each other. And that's what y'all were meant to have. That's what same-sex people are supposed to have in the first place between each other's brothers, sisters, and even brothers and sisters that aren't meant to be each other's, you know, wedding soulmate or whatever.
Right.
You're meant to be like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be everyone. That can be like a select one or two handfuls.
Right.
But that's what you're meant to have. And so I told Marcus, I texted Laura and Lindsay, and I also texted Marcus, and I said, like, hey, this is what I'm hearing from the Lord. And I was kind of telling him from a place as he was on his own journey with the Lord. And it's really funny because maybe like a week beforehand, he had told me that God was telling him something. He's just like, hey, I bought the ring, but I really feel like God's telling me that we're not supposed to get married. He's telling me we're supposed to get married to him. But he was so scared to have that conversation with me, and he was surprised that I handled it so well. And I was just like, I just took it. And I was like, okay. And he's just like, you're not mad? I'm like, no. Like, I mean, I'm kind of in a place right now where I'm figuring out, and I'm hearing things from the Lord, so I'm just going to chew on it. And then that happened. In a sense, I unfortunately, while he was broke up with him through text, was not the intention. And so it took a few days of silence between the both of us for him to process. We both had to grieve.
Yeah.
Because I just felt the Lord saying this, like, when you hear so clearly and from the Lord for something that you've prayed and asked for months and answer, it's just like, are you just going to take it and put it on the back burner, or put it on the shelf and let it collect dust? Or are you actually going to now take that and walk with it and steward it and say yes and move in obedience?
Yeah.
And I just felt so strongly, this is not something I can just, oh, I heard it, okay, still going to go do what I want to do. No, I felt so strongly there's a call to obedience here. So I was just like, and Marcus eventually, you know, he, after the fact, was just like, hey, I think I'm glad that you chose obedience, because he's also seen the fruit of it in his relationship with Christ. But we both had to put a hard stop from that day forward of like the boundaries of not being sexual or romantic together. But instead, pursuing what it meant, whatever it meant to be a David and Jonathan for each other. And that's my encounter with the Lord that really was a catalyst and set the frame for where I'm at now.
Yeah. It's a good call, right, to obedience. It doesn't necessarily mean more than that. We choose to obey, and we see what he's going to do with that, like what changes come in our life because of that. And sometimes there's blessing and sometimes there's struggle, and it's still like just that call to obedience over and over again. You talked about a little bit earlier when we were chatting, a little bit about, you know, just things that were happening as far as conversations with your family, things that weren't as helpful. We talked about that. You have, of course, Laura and Lindsay, who were more helpful, far more helpful than that. What are other ways that people were helpful? And I guess really the heart of my question is, what are ways that we as a church can be helpful to the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, there's two major people that come to mind. So my sister-in-law, Kayla, and a really good friend, Andrea. They both did a really good job, I guess, for Kayla being the family member, even though she's my sister-in-law, but I really do feel like she's my sister and best friend.
Yeah.
And Andrea as well, just like she's probably one of the best examples of a friend that like will, you know, check in on you and will really like be there for you and show up for you. And they both did a really good job of like calling me, checking in on me, or being there when I needed to have a talk about something, whether it was something dumb that happened between me and Marcus, or something else in life that I need to talk about, they were there for me when I need someone to talk to. They were more than happy and welcoming for Marcus to be around, to go have a meal together, or even inviting Marcus into the home or their home or apartment kind of situation. And would talk to him and just like be normal and just like welcoming and joyful, and or sad when it was, whatever the feelings that it called for in that moment where the conversation went. They just treated us normally. You know, even though Andrea did say just like, hey, I may not agree with this, and they both have a little bit of differing, like Kayla was just like, it still leans towards, hey, whatever. She does have a relationship with the Lord, she is a believer, but some believers still are figuring out that, well, maybe if that makes them happy, whatever, then pursue that, because I think a lot of those people don't want to push someone to the point of suicide.
Right.
So they tend to go in that direction of just like, whatever makes you happy, but just as long as you still have a relationship with the Lord. And then for Andrea, it was just like, hey, I don't agree with it in terms of like the marriage aspect of it, or the sexual romantic stuff, but I'm still gonna like be your sister. I'm still gonna be your friend, and we're still gonna eat together and laugh together and go play pickleball or do whatever, and or go jump on a trampoline and be children together. Like we did those things together. And so just having both of them really, 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 like, I really felt like they both showed the example of like what Jesus would have done, of like inviting us to the table, making us feeling welcome, having a meal with us, talking with us about things to try to understand. But also, it wasn't always those kind of hard conversations. It was also, other serious things, or even just carefree, silly things. Even again, just with Kayla and my brother Jason, just like going on a camping trip with us, and that was just so special. So just like they've both done many things that again really personified in their Kayla and Andrea way the love of Jesus. And I feel like they really did it well. And they were a big reason of like, okay, so Jesus, I think this is what love looks like. One may want me not to kill myself. That's just a really real aspect of it. And that's why she believes the way she believes, of just like, I believe in God, but I also feel like you should do that because I would rather you be alive than take your life. And then the other was, I may not agree, but I'm still going to walk with you, whether you're trying to pursue holiness, and freedom, or even if you're in the lifestyle, but I'm still going to be there with you through it.
Yeah. I love that. I have one more question for you, because earlier when you were chatting, you talked a little bit about same-sex attraction versus actually acting out on those behaviors. And there is debate amongst people what that actually means. You said you'd come back around, so I'm going to bring you back around. Could you talk a little bit about that, please?
Sure, absolutely. I think, at least maybe my understanding of the word is just like, at least a working understanding that's still being worked on right now, we'll say, is I do believe that people were, because I think the word says we are born into a certain aspect of sin kind of situation. We're born into sin, so there's going to be different things that can be happening generationally, that could roll down to you. And for some people that could be alcoholism, anger, other things, lust, promiscuity, or even just like same-sex attraction, or it can show up in different ways or manifest in different ways for different people. So I do wrestle with the idea of like, are we born this way? Maybe in a sense, since we are born into sin, kind of, yes, but it's not how we were formed and fashioned in the womb.
Right. Yeah.
That's not what God intended.
Yeah.
But because we are born into sin, that kind of gets like, again, the generational roll down does come into the mix. I also don't think that, I mean, it's just this aspect of like same sex or whether it's heterosexual or homosexual attraction. I don't think there's an issue with like being attracted to people.
Right. Yeah.
There's not, so that, I don't think that's where I'm going with that. I don't think it's
Sure.
a problem to be attracted to people. I think it's a good thing to appreciate the beauty in people in a society that wants to focus on flaws and trying to call people ugly or less than another people when we're all beautifully and fearfully and wonderfully made by the Lord. So I do think that it's okay to be attractive, because you don't really even know like if that's going to be sexual attraction or just an attraction to them mentally, spiritually, as a friend, or just appreciating the beauty in them that, you know, that God made them to be. So that's pretty much the answer. It's like, I don't think there's an issue with the attraction, because we all deal with things that we're attracted to or that we're pulled into. Some people are attracted to, again, the opposite sex, and at least if they don't act on it before, you know, the covenant of marriage, great. Some people are attracted to food in a sense, or or alcohol and stuff like that, but it's a matter of like, are you acting on it? Are you partaking? Are you living in it and looking to it as your comfort, as your source, as your center? Are you making an idol out of it? Are you making it a part of your identity? Or, you know, when those things, there's a lot of things that people make part of their identity when that's not what God says about them, about who they are, about how they were made, their image. But a lot of people try to like add these extra labels. So I hope that answered the question.
That's helpful. I think so. I had two thoughts when you were saying that. I'll probably talk more about this on a solo episode as well, but I see there's a difference between attraction and lust. Lust is a sin, right? Attraction might be a noticing, and then you choose to turn your thoughts elsewhere. Or a lust would be allowing yourself to go there, like to fantasize, and that is sinful, right? And so I think those things need to be separated from one another, and they're often not separated in this conversation. It's just there's a same-sex attraction or opposite sex attraction, but it's actually deeper than that too, depending on what you do with it. And behavior doesn't always mean physically acting out. Behavior could be acting out in your mind and where you're going with things. And I think that's sinful too. But I like how you're mentioning it. Born this way, you're like, if you were born into sin, so yeah, but not like in the womb crafted this way. And I think that's a really important distinction too, because it reminds us that, all of us are born into sin, and except for the grace of God, go I, right? Any of us could be prone to any sin that's available to us. We humans are really good about engaging in all kinds of sin. So it's good to know that there's grace for all of us, and that it really isn't about what is the sin that you struggle with. It's really about, are you allowing the Lord to form you so that you're not getting involved in that sin, but instead constantly seeking him out. So really good. My friend Sean, will you pray for us and for our listeners?
Absolutely, Jessica. So, dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you so much for this time. Thank you so much for the opportunity for Jessica and myself to be able to just sit across from each other and converse. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to share my story, my testimony, and my experience, for us to better understand each other, but for other people to just hear a story and a testimony in someone's account. I just pray for the listeners, Lord, and our hearts, Lord, that ultimately, Lord, that we just have revelation, God, again, of like who you are, Lord. That's the main thing. I think that's the main thing that gets attacked, whether it was for Adam or for Jesus, even, or just like identity, God, will we have a better and true and deeper understanding of who you are and who we are, because we're made and formed in your image, and who you say we are. And would we, Lord, just respond appropriately to you because of your love and the sacrifice that you made in giving your only son, so that we could have relationship and connection and no longer separation from you? Would we just have a fresh, deeper revelation of that, Lord? And would we then respond appropriately, God, which is like, okay, may the Lamb receive the reward for his suffering. And that is his bride, like the collective bride for the bridegroom. He is worthy and deserving of a pure and spotless bride that is just devoted in affection to him. And would we turn our eyes and our gaze towards Jesus, and pursue him? He is the goal. He is the prize, for all our days, not turn to the left or to the right, but just be fixed on him as, again, he is the one in eternity that we're going to be locked into, our hearts are going to be intertwined with. So I just thank you, Jesus. Thank you so much for what you did and what you've done and what you're doing. And we just say yes to you, that we yield, that we surrender, and we just say, may you be enough. Would you be enough when all other things vying for our attentions, our dreams, our aspirations, even if those things never come to pass, would you be more than enough? In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of the White Stones podcast. If you enjoyed it, would you do me a favor and like, share, subscribe, all the things so that this podcast gets seen by others that might be looking for it? And hey, remember, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So think of one thing that God has done in your life today and find one person to share it with. Catch you next time.